me, that would be great. You just have to push all the light switches all the way down. So I'm just publishing right now, so if you refresh your Canvas window, you'll be able to see this assignment. You just have to push it down all the way hard. All three of those and that one. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. So we did something called a headline study. So that was just dealing with text that's not a lot of words at once, like not paragraph text, which is also called body copy. So now we're going to just deal with your serif font. So your headlines were only your sans serif. And this is going to have a variety of different things on it. So this can have headlines and subheads. It can have menu types of things, quotes, paragraphs. So this looks kind of more like a traditional newspaper. And it's just, again, to play around with setting the type, using sans serif stuff, and using a couple more tools that we have in Illustrator. So you're going to be using your serif or humanist font. You're going to come up with multiple ways your font can be used for headlines, subhead, and body copy. So body copy is all these paragraphs. That's what body copy text means. You can pick a theme again of what you want to write about, or it can be random. And then it says work on the pleasing margin. So that's leaving this white space around. And then tonal contrast. It helps a little bit more. There's probably less options to choose from with your serif font. So these black bars help with a little bit of the tonal contrast, or having lists or other items in these areas. This looks a little bit different than this does. So just ways that you can use words to create things that look darker, things that look lighter. So let's talk about this a little bit. In the module, I have a resource, and I think we talked about it before. It's called Meet the Ipsums, where you can get your text from if you would like. So lorem ipsum is filler text, and it's Latin. And the reason you use filler text that looks like, it needs to feel like real words, because when we were little, we just did like FDSJ, like we just took the home row keys and we typed a bunch of them and did a space, and typed a bunch of them and did a space. But then it starts to look like a pattern. And so then our eyes notice the pattern. When we use real words, even if they don't make sense or the words aren't a real paragraph, it's still, our eye doesn't stare at the text. It looks at it as a whole paragraph instead of this repeated pattern. So this has some funny ones and some pretty bad ones. There is some that have like a cuss word every other word. I would prefer that you don't use that one, because then when we do a critique, it just feels pretty uncomfortable for me. I'm not gonna lie. But there are, like, here's zombie ipsum. You click to a site that goes out. If they're not maintaining the site, it might not be there anymore. You can say how many paragraphs you need, and then you can copy and text. Copy and paste the text into Illustrator. So we'll just go with a zombie theme, why not? So we're gonna have a letter size artboard. And working in this particular assignment, before you were using the technique for the text tool to click and let go to create a headline. So you're gonna have a variety of clicking and letting go. And I do not know if there's a formal word for the click and let go. That's just what I call it. So you either have that or you have this. If you want to use this lorem ipsum, you can. It's fine, but it's kind of fun to use the stuff that has real words in it. So two different varieties. Here, you can hold shift like we talked about and enlarge the scale. Here, if you hold shift, it just, even if you don't hold shift, it just enlarges the text box. So you're going to be working with both of those with your sans serif font. Some other things to play around with when you're dealing with paragraphs is I'll close this out. So again, for this class, doing the command or squiggly square, you can call it T. You get your character panel up. It most likely comes with options hidden, so you want to show those options. This is where you double check that horizontal and vertical type. These don't want to change. And then you can also go to window and go to type. I'm going to get my paragraph window up. So you can tracking you're going to use a lot more, letting you're going to use a lot more than tracking when it comes to paragraphs. You're going to put space between those lines. I wouldn't do anything smaller than 10 points for a paragraph for this. And in a paragraph, I wouldn't put anything, definitely 14 would be the largest, and that's going to feel a little bit big. Quotes and other things that you want to put in, you can make those larger. Again, this is where we can take the hyphenation off, so I'll show you. It's hyphenating words. It's a little dash. You can make that go away, but then sometimes the type will just have some bigger holes in it that you might not like. And you can do some adjustments in this panel here. You can kind of move things over a little bit, move it this way, and it just makes some fine tuning to make that paragraph feel or fill that space a little bit better for you. You can also indent the first line of each paragraph. You can see it's going out a little bit over here, which is a little bit interesting. You can, let's see, this spreads. Is it just the last paragraph? It should do. Oh, it does all the paragraphs. There's only 2 paragraphs. So if you have multiple paragraphs, this will spread apart the space between the paragraphs. It's doing the same thing right now because there's only 2 paragraphs. So it's the space between, the paragraph above and the paragraph below. And there are no more options here to show. Again, you can deal with things that are right justified, left justified, center. If you have paragraphs that are like a story that's supposed to be connecting, then you're going to have it left justified, like if you're going to design columns. And we talked about how to get that text connected before. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to go down to 10 point. I'm going to make another text box. And this is where you can get that cursor. Let's see if I can get this higher up so you can see. That has the little dots, and I can click. And when I go to the next box, it shows a link symbol. And I can click, and it'll link the text boxes together. So if I copy and paste in my zombie text, and it'll fill all those boxes, and then I can adjust those boxes together. So when I make this adjustment here, because those text boxes are linked, it's making those adjustments on everything that's linked together. So that's nice to make those changes. And you can link multiple text boxes together. It's not just 2. You can have 3, 4, 5. You just have to hand link them each time that way. And it always starts in this little red plus. So the red plus means there's more text there. Sometimes you don't see text. It's actually just like spaces or returns, but it means that there's more information that is outside of how big your text box is. So that's, again, dealing with more paragraphs, kind of playing around with these, and then you still will have headlines in this. And again, it needs to be a sans serif, so that means with feet is kind of what I call it. So here is a sans serif, just as an example. It has the little edges there. So just make sure you're using that one typeface with the different variations. And you can look up some samples of, newspaper layouts and different things to get ideas. You could put like a fake coupon in it if you wanted to. Yeah.
So the headlines are sans serif and the body are serif, right?
Well, we call this, it's confusing, I get that. We called, most headlines are going to be, I should say, a sans serif font is often in a print setting. If you're doing large paragraphs, it would only be used in headlines. When you start dealing with type on devices and type for print and just modern day times, you can use sans serif for paragraphs and for headlines. Sans serif or serifs are harder to read in print paragraph wise. I wanted you on that assignment, for the headline assignment, to just use a sans serif font, to just focus on one font with it. This, I want you to use your serif font because it is more traditional to have a serif font for these paragraphs. And I just want one classification, just one type on this assignment. When we move forward, you're going to, unless the assignment calls for just sans serif or just serif, you are going to be able to use these freely how you want to use them. But for this particular assignment, it's just, it would look pretty boring if we just had a bunch of paragraphs and nothing else besides it. So that's why you're adding a few headlines in there. Are there any more questions?
Where did I find the fonts that I sent you?
If you can't remember the fonts that you chose, you can go back to your assignment, and I think you can click on Resubmit in Canvas, and it should show you what you submitted. Even if there should be a button that you can click on.
Like under grades, and I click sans serif headline.
And I can come help you after this too. So here is the sans serif. You say serif and sans serif so much they get really confusing. So the typeface that you have not used yet is what you're going to be using for this assignment. And again, you can use the different variations. So that means you can have italic, you can have bold, you can have light, or whatever those came with. This says it's due October 1st. We're going to do the same thing. The expectation is you can get pretty much most of it done today in lab, finish it over the weekend. When you walk in on Tuesday, it's ready to go like those were. You'll print them. We'll look at them really quickly. I'll give some feedback. You'll have till the end of that lab to adjust them if you need to, but I'm also going to move on to the next thing that we're going to be creating. Some kombucha banners. Very interesting. You guys know what kombucha is?
Fermented.
It's fermented tea. It's very popular.
It has like a little bit of alcohol, right? Or no?
Anything fermented, I think, does have a little bit of alcohol.
They have alcoholic beverages with kombucha. It's called kaya.